And welcome to the Writer's Life, the place where you get the sight, sound, smells, taste of my particular writer's life, where you get the truth about the writer's life. I wore all black today, so it's like just a head is here, just a head. Subscribe if you haven't already. Punch the like button, and tap the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on one single uber exciting video. And this is a very uber exciting video today, or podcast, I should say, because I have Jennifer Wilcov with me, the multi-talented. I don't even know what title to give you because you do so many things. You're an author, you're a book coach, you're a film sort of agent coach, you're a financial advisor, I mean, there's probably nothing you don't do. And Jen hails from Brooklyn, I think, right? You're in Brooklyn now. You and
I am. Yep.
And so, like, Jennifer's like, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Come on, Jen.
I love it. Start spreading the news.
Told you this is gonna be fun.
I love it. I love it.
Clap your hands. All right. Enough of that. Too much fun. So I've known Jen since like the Query and Wait days, I believe, and so it's been a while, and now I'm pushing 60, so like it's been a while. It's been a long time, Jen.
It has.
How's life?
Things are great. You
look terrific.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. It's such a fun time this time of year, but it's very, very busy. Right. And it's a great time to be writing. It's a great time to be observing because, as you and I both know, we write what we see, we write what we know, and we write what we experience. So,
right. Are you always writing a book on top of everything else you're doing? You're such an entrepreneur. You're like a literary entrepreneur. Jennifer runs Your Book Is Your Hook. Which I speak at once or twice a year, and it's very popular. It's trademarked and all this sort of stuff. And tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so Your Book Is Your Hook actually started when I was a financial planner, and I actually came out with my very first book, and it turned the financial industry on its head because it was a pink book, hardcover, pink inside and out for her on the finance shelf in 2005. Wow. And the only person who was out actually talking to her about money was Susie Orman, who was actually yelling at her and shaming her for not knowing anything about her money. And so I was this very nice, easy, not threatening person who basically came and started talking to her about emotions about money and understanding how it was for her. And so I was one of the first people to talk about the emotions of money way back in 2005, before nowadays everybody talks about it. Right. And so I ended up becoming a #1 international bestseller with that book. I was not ready for it. I didn't know it was going to happen. And people kept calling my office and saying, "Can you help me with your book? I want to be you. I want to be on television. I want to be in the newspaper. I want to be quoted in, right, magazines, blah, blah." Like, this is everything that was happening to me. And I was like, "Don't you want a financial plan?" They were, "No, I want you to help me with my book." So I said, okay. So I was basically doing both. And at some point through a series of events, it tipped over. And I just opened Your Book Is Your Hook because Your Book Is Your Hook popped out during a conversation. I said, "Oh, that's the name of my business." And so as an entrepreneur, part of what I knew was that people were asking me for help about something that I knew about. I had experienced it, I'd done it. And so basically I said, well, if there are a few people asking me, there are going to be more people. So I better figure out how I'm actually going to construct this so that I can make it a service. Right. And Your Book Is Your Hook grew. It's nearly 20 years now. I've been doing this, if you can believe that.
Wow.
And one of my first clients was the fantastic Sandy Shurin, who is an acting coach. She runs her own acting studio. She has actors that have come through it of names you know. And she and her husband came to me and asked me to help them with her book. And it was not just editing the book, it was literally shepherding them from where they were with the book all the way through publication. And because what I always ask my clients is, what do you want? And I gave her what she wanted. She had a standing room out the door event at the drama bookshelf, the drama bookshop, excuse me, in Times Square. She said,
Wow.
what I want. I want a book. I want merchandise that people can buy, t-shirts and mugs and all. I did the whole thing with her. And literally, I had people just around the corner waiting to work with me. And it was really sort of profound because I was actually an author who understood what they were experiencing, but it was so easy for me. I was having such a good time doing it, and they were miserable. And they were like, just help me from here to here, or I don't know how to get there, and all of these other things. And so Your Book is Your Hook really just organically grew because the marketplace kept coming to me. And so for me, I kept serving the marketplace, and I was a writer. I mean, I was still writing and publishing books and doing things and being asked for anthologies and, writing chapters and becoming, just this multi number one bestseller because the different things I was doing, those things were happening. And
Right.
it was really fascinating. Like one of the books that I do want to mention this because this is really sort of current right now. Um, the book that I co-wrote with my co-author, Kim Miles, and it was released in 2010. That book, Boys Before Business, A Single Girl's Guide to Having It All, is 14 years old. It is still selling.
Wow.
And this summer, she called me and said, hey, I sold a book last week. And I actually texted her back and said, so did I. And we actually got on the phone with our publisher and said, hey, we think we're going to actually come around again and use the current marketing that's available now to remarket and relaunch the book. And
Good
oh
idea.
my God, we're doing it. We're literally like right on the cusp of actually relaunching a 14-year-old book.
Right.
And it's so much fun and it's so
Right.
fantastic. And, I tell people all the time, like, people say to me, oh, well, if my book isn't coming out, nobody's listening. Listen, honey, it's just because you're not presenting it the right way. Because
Right.
I just helped in earlier this year. I had somebody who came to me and she actually wanted to make her 8th book in the series she was writing a bestseller. And I said, okay. And so literally I took over the helm of what she was actually doing and planning to promote this book upon its launch and inserted a bestseller campaign so that all of those resources would be supporting the same time frame. When you run a campaign, it should be 48 hours. And
Right.
so literally, Vin, this is what happened. The first night we'd scheduled 2 nights on Zoom. So the first night was supposed to be her talking with a couple of other people that she knew, some other writers. I was on the call. Her parents were on it. She had already hit it.
Wow.
She was already like in the top 5 of a very difficult category, which is
Right.
historical Christian romance.
Wow.
It was very difficult. And
That is tough.
she hit it in 3 categories. And she's crying. Her parents are and you know, and basically she had a whole nother 24 hours to go. So I mean, it was
Right.
really so fun and so much, joy that I'm able to bring, but also to have. Like, I love my clients. I love supporting them. I love seeing what they're doing in the world. And for me, you know, when I actually figured out that I was going to help other writers, like, you talk about the writer's life, right?
Right.
So when you're a writer, you have a schedule, right? You have different things that you're doing, you have different things you have to produce, and you have other things that you want to do. So for me, I'm one of those people where I say, okay, I came into this wasn't, I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to do this. It was really, people asked me, would you? Almost like an invitation.
Right.
And I have.
Yeah. And
I've never looked back. It's really a wonderful thing to be able to help people who are about 200, 300, 500 yards behind you
right.
that just need to know. Like, I'll tell you what most people say to me. If I knew, I would just do it.
Right. Right. Which makes a lot of sense. And, like for a control freak like me, be careful what you wish for, because I mean, I took 2 days off this week to ski,
Good.
and it's like the whole world is like, where have you been? Because you owe me this, and then it's like, and I've always wanted this to be. I've always wanted the writer's life to be like, I get up, I write, I work out, I travel, I do this, I write more, whatever. And I almost want it to be, I don't want it to be like retired life by any means, but I want it to be like, I basically just write, and then I spend 80% of it's writing and the 80-20 thing, and then 20% of it is marketing, whatever. And then
Yep.
I go to the bar or something, or I go get food. Right. But I had Troy Lambert on from, he runs the Idaho Writers Guild, and he's also an editor of mine. And in this new age with AI and all this stuff, it's like things are just expanding and exploding. Opportunities are expanding and exploding like crazy.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, I can't keep up. I can't catch up with myself. You got newsletters you got to put out now. Amazon's got, you could put out like all your books in virtual audio, which is like the way Troy put it, like that will be like the equivalent of like the cheaper paperback, and which is a smart thing to say. So you got to switch all your books into I'm talking about my independent books. The
Right.
traditional pubs just don't get it. So like, I'm still trying to get rights back. There's just so much to do. So like, I know that you are a strong advocate because I've done my due diligence and read some of your blogs, and I know you're a strong advocate for time management for authors.
Yes.
So like, short of say, Jen, you gotta help me. You gotta do this. What do you suggest? How do I manage my time better?
So that's a really good question. So I'm going to answer it two ways. I'm going to give you some really good advice. I'm going to tell you about a writer's room that I curate. And I'm also going to give you some suggestions of how to take action. So part of what I talk about sometimes because I get asked to speak at a lot of places. So one of the things I've talked about is doubling down on your writing discipline.
Right.
And so part of that is really understanding that if you don't sit in the seat, your project isn't going to get completed.
Right.
Never complete, right? And so I created during the pandemic, actually, a writer's room that's virtual. And the reason why I did it is because of exactly what you said. I'm a huge fan of time blocking, of actually taking your calendar, making an appointment with yourself, and allowing yourself the gift of knowing that that's your time. You tell everybody else around you, hey, this is my time. I'm going to be, occupied. And what I curate is a 3-hour experience so that you actually come in. There's a theme for every session. That theme, believe it or not, is universally applicable to any story. It shows up in every story. It's amazing. We're doing it tonight. Actually, we do it Thursday nights. Tonight's theme is joy.
Oh,
Next week's is celebrate. And at the end of the month, we'll do transitions because, or no, I think the end of the month is endings because it's the end of the year, right? And then in January, we do beginnings because every story has a beginning, every story has an ending. But crafting is really where it's at, right? But most people, when they go to a writer's group, they're either listening to somebody read their stuff or, they're given somebody else's work. In my room, you write your stuff, and it's really about getting it done. Like one of the quotes that I have from one of the participants is, "This is where you go to get your project done."
right.
And this is
Right.
how you get it written. Because for me, what I do is I actually help people understand that I kick people off with a positive quote after we've discussed the theme briefly. And then I ask people to pair off, which we do. I set people up. And you actually pitch your project to somebody else using the theme as your roadway to actually communicate about it. What is it about your project? Where in it is there a sense of joy? Talk to me about that. Talk to your partner about that.
Right.
And then I've created for participants in the room all of these tools in their toolkit that they can pull out when they're actually talking to people about their book, because they've actually been in a situation where I've given them 3 or 4 minutes where they've actually had to do it on the spot, just like you would in a regular conversation. And so they tell me they're very facile with this. It's easy because all of a sudden now you can talk about your project. Then you come back and then we talk about that. And then you work on your project for like anywhere from 60 to 70 minutes. I teach you how to take a healthy break, which you should, because actually the brain fades at about 70 to 90 minutes. And so that's really not a good thing. And then also what happens is when you actually come back from the break, you should actually have a mindfulness moment. And that mindfulness moment is to ease your mind, body, and spirit back into writing.
Right.
And that gives you the opportunity to actually get back in the game. And then you need to learn how to sprint. Sprinting is about, hey, I only have 20 minutes. Hey, I only have 15 minutes. I only have 30 minutes. And then most people say, oh, I'm not going to write. I don't have enough time to sit down.
Right.
So in the back half after the break, you sprint in the room. And most people, that's my favorite thing. I always say, you get more written than you thought you would in less time than you thought you needed.
So true. That's how I operate sprints.
Because it's really, and actually it gives you a chance to really zero in and focus because you only have a certain amount of time.
Right.
And one thing I do in the room, everybody goes home with a digital goodie bag that's actually a virtual talk about talk that's related to the theme. And so like if the theme is expectations, then there's, I give them, for example, a TED talk that I recommend that's about expectations, or, something else. Or I might take an animated one that when the change of the season comes about, I think I do it in the spring. And I actually give people a 4-minute animated video that is actually about the changing of the seasons, because when we do seasons, we talk about the seasonality of your book.
Right.
That's
all
these really fun things.
So
So it's called the Make It Happen Room.
Okay, the Make It Happen Room. So it's also geared towards, if you have a day job or whatever, it's not happening at 1:00 in the afternoon.
No, it's actually at 5:30 to 8:30 Eastern.
So
and
that
it's
works.
on Thursday nights. Yep.
That works. That's a brilliant idea. I don't know how you come up with this stuff.
Thanks. Well, I always want to support writers. And one of the best things about it is that most people have a harder time sitting down in their own seat when they're by themselves.
Right.
But when they're in a group that's also writing, and then you're going to interact at certain points,
You got to get something done.
you got to get something done.
So you
Not the time to do the laundry.
and then you pair the people up. So is it sort of a dating service too, or?
No, actually, it's not. It's
Just
really
kidding.
great.
Because I was like, then I'm in. You know,
Well, it's really fun because when
that's
you're
a good angle,
actually,
by the way.
well,
Yeah.
when you're actually in the room, like we have memoir writers, we have people who write scripts,
Right.
screenplays, people who are writing, one person shows, Broadway material, things like that. Like I
Right.
have, and I won't name her, but I have a person who is actually a known voiceover artist in film. She's also a director, a producer, and a screenwriter. And she has come into my room and she's written in the mornings, in the morning sessions that I offer. And she literally has written 2 screenplays.
Awesome.
Another writer wrote wrote her entire film. She actually adapted a play into a screenplay
Wow.
in the room. I mean, it's just really, and because it makes people sit down, you actually, this is
Right.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
as the writer's life, life is not a dress rehearsal.
Nope. Yep.
So if you're
And
going to write, you got to write now.
yeah, every day. So this is flying. So I have to ask you something. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You have your finger on the pulse of just about everything. You're in New York, and you do. I mean, you know the agents, you know producers, you know directors, you know publishers, you know the whole gamut. Um, you know, you're just. I think you're actually from like the Matrix, and there's like a million of you, but we just don't know. Mr. Zandri. Predictions.
Uh-huh.
What's happening in 2024? What's going to be the big shakeup in the
Well,
literary community?
I
Or
think
whatever.
one of the most interesting things that has happened is the series of strikes that we've had this year about writing and the confluence with the onset of people acknowledging that AI is in the world. And
Right.
what I mean by that in our language is the publishing world. And people know when something has been written by AI. They can
Sure.
sniff it out. There are laws that are changing. There are rules that are changing. And that's what I see as sort of the big bang, if you will, for 2024 is that harnessing AI in such a way so that it is not damaging, but that it is used productively, I think is really where everybody who is on the positive side of the street, if you will, is looking for is how can you use something that is such a powerful tool, but it shouldn't be writing your college essays. It shouldn't be
No.
writing your next thriller.
No.
And please, my goodness, don't take somebody's work and basically say, write me their next book and publish it for them, which
Right.
has happened to people in the publishing field right now,
Right. Right.
prominent people. And that's
Wow.
really a problem. The thing that I would say is that the only way AI knows your materials because it's been fed. It is a machine.
Yep.
It's machine learning. And so, part of I see people who are frightened by AI. I see other people who are excited by AI, and I see other people who are confused. So I think in the publishing field, listen, I've been doing this for nearly 20 years, right?
Right.
And so people self publish now and they do things. But the piece that I always tell them is that it doesn't matter how you publish. Like, if you're going to go, it depends on what you want, right?
Right. Right.
So if you want an agent and you want that publisher name on your book, go for it.
Sure.
But go for that before you self-publish.
Right. That's what I
Because if
always
you
say.
don't do that, I promise you, if you self-publish and you've only sold to family and friends,
Right.
it is going to be nearly impossible to get a
I don't want
literary
you.
agent and a publisher to
Yep.
buy into the fact that you can actually publish a book with them that will sell, because the unpublished author has a much higher chance of getting the literary agent and the publisher because they are unproven. And
Right.
it goes against every rule, every grain that every person knows.
Right.
Right. And so, I offer office hours. That's one thing I wanted to let you know. I'm the only
Right.
professional in the industry who
Oh my
offers
God.
office hours.
Right.
And literally, you can come just like you used to do after school or after a class. You would actually
Sure.
go see the professor and ask all your questions.
Right.
I now basically offer office hours so people can ask me questions, get direction, get information. It's not in place of a service that I offer, but basically, oftentimes people are like, I just want to talk to somebody in the field. I just want to talk
Right.
to a professional who can give me some guidance about X. And
Right.
that's really how office hours is transforming a lot of people,
Right.
because they're like, I don't need a big whopping service. I don't need this. But I have all these questions I don't know, and this and that, right?
Right.
If you're
Right.
going to be a writer, every week in the Make It Happen room, that is one of the things we repeat. Thank yourself for being, and thank yourself for being a writer,
Right.
because you are. And I've watched people who are like, they've come in and like, oh, I'm no writer. And by the time they leave with the project, they're like, I'm a writer.
Right. No, I totally get that. And it's funny because, I mean, this, but my advice, like on one hand, my advice is always, if you're starting out, try to get a traditional deal first and try to prove yourself in that
Always.
battleground first, even if it's a small press or it's a medium press, but just try to get some cred under you,
That's right.
from your peers, so I did like 40 or 50 books that way before I started Bear Media, and now I'm all about keeping my intellectual property because I'm at that
Mhm.
stage of life,
Right.
to me, a book or a story or a novella, hey, Big Philly, chiming in, it's like a little piece of, it's like a piece of Manhattan, it's going to
Yeah.
be mine and my
Mhm.
kids and whatever, and earning me money. It's an investment. If it earns me 10-15% a year, that's better than any, money market account or,
Mhm.
whatever. So that's where I'm at. I'm still a hybrid publisher or a hybrid author, but definitely moving much more towards the indie. But you got to prove yourself, I think, in the battleground first, and that does mean an agent, and it does mean all that stuff. So, the fact that you're helping these people do this stuff, especially when they're newbies, that's just to me, it's an invaluable service, because I had no clue what I
Nobody.
was doing when I started. When I got my first deal in '99, Jimmy Vines, was my agent, and they're throwing all this money at me at Delacorte's, and I'm I was like, what, 31 or something. I'm like partying like I remember waking up on the floor in Gramercy Park, like, like, where's my wallet? Like, that whole bit. I mean, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. That might have even been around the first time I met you, but I was just lost. I had no idea. I was under the assumption that once you get a big deal, you got one every year. And it's like, no. In fact, a big deal could be the worst thing you ever get.
Well, people tell me all the time, because I actually own the trademark for the literary agent matchmaker, right? And so that's what I do, because I really am all about helping people with this anomaly of, how do I get an agent, or how do I get to a publisher? And I don't know if you know the statistic, but more than 60% of writers who actually have an agent have met them and pitched them at an event or a conference first.
Right. Yep.
And then they followed up and they did all the right things, right, to follow up and keep dialoguing and continuing, because no agent is going to say yes at a table across from you at an event they just met you at.
Right.
They're going to see it on the page. They have to see it on the page. Like, I've been asked to be an agent, and I don't want to be an agent because I understand the place I have in the industry. And I help the writer so the writer can get across the transom, you know? And the reason I can do that is because I'm a writer,
Right.
and understanding how to communicate with people. Some people are intimidated by agents. Other people are like, oh, I can't write that publisher. I'm like, why not? How are
That
they
works.
going to know about your stuff? How are you going to present it? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? You're going to go to this event, I mean, like, I have events I'm speaking at next year already, and for me, I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to see this person, this person, this person. And, one of the things that's so fun is the more you understand the industry, like, listen, I'm a platinum member at New York Women in Film and Television, and I'm a member of Women in Film in Los Angeles. Okay. So there are lots of different experiences that I have, but it's because I've actually taken the time to actually join organizations also of
Right.
people that are like me. Like, I'm actually a member of the elite group, Women's Media Group, with people like Dominique Rocca, who, is the publisher of Source Books, and other people.
Right.
But I've known Dominique for years and years, not because she's Dominique. She's a wonderful person. She's an
Right.
amazing human being, built an amazing company in Chicago,
Yeah.
and it was such a pleasure when I first met her. And I know other people that are like her in her position, and other people, but that's because I've gone through the industry. I speak, I help other writers, and I'm really all about the writer. And I think that's what people know about me. And that's where I'm at. Like, I build things like the workshop you speak at, so that we can come together and help the writer get to the next place
Right.
on their journey, because every writer has their own journey. It's an amazing journey. I invite you, if you haven't really gotten over the transom, take a
Right.
step. It won't hurt. It's fabulous.
It is.
um
It is amazing how no two writers' experiences are the same.
nope.
None. It just is amazing to me. And I modeled my career on. I mean, this is silly. I've spoken about this before, but I didn't know how to be a writer. I was like, well, Ernest Hemingway worked for a newspaper, and then he wrote short stories, and then he wrote for magazines, and then he published a novel. So that's, I guess, how it
Right,
works. I mean,
right.
I went to writing school in between, but I was like, I guess that's how it works. I don't know, and so at least it was a plan.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? But so many people don't even have a plan. You know,
Well, most people don't know what to do, right? And so they look around, they're watching other people. But the one thing that usually they have a good story. They have an idea, they have an arc, or
right,
they at least know what they want to tell,
right,
And so for most people, because you have it up here, it's very hard for many people to craft it on the page.
sure,
They can take vignettes and put them on the page, right? But it's the craft. Like, I know, I'm a developmental editor, right? is is taking those and weaving them into a story that fits, so
right,
that you can actually move through a story rapidly. Like, when you write a thriller these days, if you pick up a thriller novel, some of these chapters are 2 pages, because they create pacing in the book. But many people who are actually writing don't realize that.
that's right. And it can be such a struggle for so many years until you get to that point. Tom Petty put it best, and he said at this point, he's like, I'm not even part physically. I'm not even part of the process.
Right.
It just sort of, I'm a conduit. It just sort of comes in and like, and like, and then I read it and I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. And just I don't know where it came from. Like my mother will ask me, she's like, where do you get your ideas and all this sort of stuff? Which I think is the most difficult question an author can answer. And like, like on in ITW, the Big Thrill, they're always asking those questions at the end, like, how is your book going to change? And I always give them like these stupid answers, like, why is your book important? I'm like, because I fucking wrote it. Like, I don't know, I have no idea. So you notice I can't get through one of these without an F-bomb ever. You know, like I just do it on purpose. But
Well, I can
but
tell you what I say. I'll just tell you this. I
yeah,
always tell every person that I meet that the writer doesn't choose the book to write.
right.
The
It's true.
book always chooses the writer.
Right.
And it's always
Unless you're a professional and you have a ghost project and they're telling you, you know, like how they
well,
want it,
that's a
which
ghostwriter, so
that's
that's
a completely
different.
different thing.
But
Right.
I also match ghostwriters. I don't know if you knew that these days.
Jesus.
People looking
Oh
for a
my God.
ghostwriter. Yeah, I
Oh
help
my
them
God.
actually find the right ghostwriter because people, that's sometimes the Wild West itself. But
Oh, it is. It's a completely different. We can talk about that in another.
that's
But
like a
it's. I
totally
can
different
tell you
ball
some
of yarn.
stories. Like, oh my God, screaming, where's my money? You know, like this is just and you know, we're going down tangential lane here, but um, I had such bad experiences, and I'm like, I always just keep getting 2/3 of my money before I get fired. And then I spoke to another profession. They're like, oh yeah, that's exactly how it works. Usually you get 2/3 of your money before you get canned, and then you moved on to the next one or whatever. But anyway,
Oh,
listen,
golly.
listen,
This has
Jen, we
been
could go
fun.
on all the time. You're going to come back for me because there's so much
I'd
more to
love
talk about.
to.
All
Hey,
right.
I'd love to. Let me just let me know and I'd be happy to join you.
All right. So where can your adoring public, who already know where are, but for a more adoring public, where can they find you? Where do you want them to go?
Oh, just go right to yourbookisyourhook.com. You'll find everything you need, everything you want. Get on my newsletter because I actually will teach you in the newsletter how to become an award-winning author. I'll show you conferences to go to where you can actually pitch agents. Every week, I put that out throughout the year. So that's really something to plug into. I also have a column in my newsletter that we're actually opening up a Substack called
Awesome.
Asked and Answered.
Right.
And
Substack's
so
great.
newsletter is where it's at for me. On my website, yourbookisyourhook.com, Instagram at yourbookisyourhook.com or at yourbookisyourhook. I also am on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. All of it is Your Book Is Your Hook. And that's where I'm at these
All right.
days.
And everybody, you'll be able to find Your Book Is Your Hook down there when I fill everything out as soon as this is over. Jen, thank you very much. You are a sweetheart. You can still say that in these days, right? I mean,
yeah, I'm
you
not
know.
offended.
All right, good. Yeah, I never know. Like, Jen, you are a human being. Like maybe that suffices now. Hi, Andy. I know you're back there making noise. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm just kidding.
I put
As
up
soon
the
as you're going to
sign
be
all the
playing
time,
drums,
but
All right, Jen, I will see you soon.
I'd love to.
And
Thanks a million. Mwah.
all right, ma. And for everybody else,